Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my talk today, I have a small but meaningful achievement I would like to share with all of you. It's actually two books that took me an entire year to finally finish reading. Here they are. Why are you laughing? Have you read these books too? Do you love them? No? So do I. But what I was interested in these books was the two literary works. The first one is Truyện Kiều of Nguyễn Du, and the second one is Chuyện người con gái Nam Xương of Nguyễn Dữ. So the main topic that was mainly discussed in these literary works was about the fate of women. And I was in school, when I analyzed the two words, searching for samples on the internet to complete the homework, I came across a lot of arguments that are so typical when discussing about the fate of women in feudal society. So may I ask you a question? Based on what you see and what you personally feel, do you think that Vietnamese culture favors men over women? If yes, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. I used to think so, but I personally myself grew up believing about the idea that favoring men over women deeply rooted in Vietnamese culture. Even though this mindset has been changing over time, one important question still remains. Is Vietnamese culture, at its core, naturally favors men over women? And today, I am not here to deny that gender bias existed in certain periods of Vietnamese literature. However, I do believe that the deeper values of Vietnamese culture has always respected and honored women. And I am Lê Hoàng Hiệp, a third-year student majoring in English teacher education at Saigon University, and I'm here today to prove it. So, to navigate the problem, we need to look at the reason why so many Vietnamese people believe that Vietnamese culture favors men over women. And I had to read a lot, and it took me exactly 7 years to finally finish reading this one. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 7 years, exactly 7 years. So this one represents Vietnamese literature, right? So why am I saying about a social problem using literature? Because literature, history, and society are closely connected. For example, in Truyện Kiều. No, this man is not Kiều, he's Spider-Man. Yeah, this is Truyện Kiều. And the next picture is Bánh trôi nước of Hồ Xuân Hương, right? So in these literary works, you may probably notice the way how women was portrayed as unfair and painful. Women in these stories was, treated as fragile and expendable, and easily sacrificed by the social expectations and male authority. And one thing more important is that the way later generations, include our own generation, interpret and analyze these two words, often, emphasize the belief that Vietnamese culture was deeply biased against women. There is also a well-known saying, nhất nam viết hữu, thập nữ viết vô. This means that one man means everything and 10 women mean nothing. So this saying reflects an extreme belief that only men and sons truly matter in the family and in society. And along with literature come many social norms and traditions that places men at the higher positions. For example, yes, men sitting and having meals at the upper table, and daughters and women in the family have to sit and have meal at the lower one, even in the kitchen. What else? In the past, sons were encouraged to study, take exams, and become officials. Meanwhile, daughters were taught family duties, housework, simply to prepare for marriage. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. So, and one thing in spiritual life, especially ancestor worship, men were given the central role. Sons were expected to carry on the family line and represent the family life. And one thing that is very close to us is that the pressure to have a son to continue a family life. So, as Vietnamese people, do these ideas sound familiar to you? Have you heard of them before? Yes, I have to. So that's the reason why, for a very long time, I also believe that Vietnamese culture was naturally, inherently, originally, intrinsically biased against women. But then I started to wonder, was Vietnamese culture always like this? Or was there something that caused these ideas to take root and spread? To find the answer, I have to research. So, and I found myself answer. The answer is that these ideas did not exist in early Vietnamese culture. So when did they appear? We need to look at a specific moment of history under the Ming occupation. Confucianism was introduced as a tool of governance through laws, education, and social orders. Confucian values emphasize the strict hierarchy, fixed gender roles, and patriarchal social system. However, when Vietnam regained independence, the early Lê dynasty did not reject this ideology. Instead, they actively adopted and strengthened this Confucianism, using it as a official foundation of the state. So from that point on, Confucian values slowly became deeply embedded in Vietnamese social and cultural structures. So I want to say that this is just a reflection of a historical system, not the true spirit of Vietnamese culture. So when we look at Vietnamese culture from the other point of view, I can see that the respect for women runs consistently in our, cultural identity. So, and since today we are talking about beliefs, let's begin with beliefs and spiritual life. One of the strongest examples of this is Đạo Mẫu. Yes, and I have to emphasize that Đạo Mẫu is a religion created by Vietnamese people themselves. Unlike many spiritual systems that worship male gods, Đạo Mẫu places the role of the mother at the highest positions. And we have Mẫu Thượng Thiên, Mẫu Thoại, Mẫu Thượng Ngàn as supreme figures who protect human life, crops, health, and natural life. So I think that it is so difficult to imagine a culture that truly favors men over women could build an entire spiritual system around the power, authority, and protection of the mother. Along with religion, we have some beliefs. The way that Vietnamese people think about women through Vietnamese proverbs. This is the ruộng sâu trâu nái không bằng con gái đầu lòng. This means that the farmland, the big farmland and the big buffalo are physically bigger than the baby. But what I'm saying is that the fertile farmland and the breeding buffalo are considered highly valuable assets for many rural Vietnamese families. However, they are considered less worthy than the firstborn daughter. So, and one thing more interesting is that proverbs are not written by kings or scholars. They are created by ordinary people. So, proverbs reflect the shared values and belief of an entire community. So if a community keeps saying like this means this is the language of a culture that recognizes and honors women. That is the point of view of beliefs and spiritual life. When it comes to họ và tên, which means your name, what can we see? In Vietnam, women do not lose their own names after marriage, which means that, for example, my mother can keep her full name after marriage, and she doesn't have to take my father's surname. So, Vietnamese women are not expected to erase themselves in order to belong. When we look at literature and traditional art, we may find something more intriguing. Do you know the male author on the slide, Nguyễn Du and Nguyễn Đình Chiểu? They were both well-educated men in their society, and moreover, Nguyễn Du belonged to the noble class, and he follows Confucianism for a very young age. So let's see what they wrote about women in their words. Son phấn có thần chung vẫn hận, văn chương không mệnh, đốt còn vương. This means that the value of a woman is not just considered by her appearance, but also her talent. Anh hùng mới biết anh hùng, rày xem phỏng đã cam lòng ấy chưa. This reflects the appreciation, equality between men and women. Men can be heroes, and women can be heroes too, right? What about Nguyễn Đình Chiểu? What did he say? Trai tài gái kém gì tài trai, ai lại thua ai? This is also the appreciation. And when they wrote about women, they still treated them with respect and acknowledged their talent within their own words. And one thing more interesting is that Nguyễn Du had a best friend forever. Her name is Hồ Xuân Hương. And Hồ Xuân Hương shares something in common with many other female writers. They both write mainly about women. They wrote about the feelings of women. They raised a strong voice against an unfair feudal society, and also they raised great awareness about national issues and nation's destiny. So, if Vietnamese people at that time didn't appreciate women, would these female writers have space to shine? And would their works still be remembered up to now? I think you might have your own answers. And whenever I think about the image of Vietnamese women, I have a lot of ideas. They could be the hardworking grandma, the hardworking mother. They could be the loyal and capable wife. They could be, mothers that sacrifice everything for children. And they could be women on the battlefield. So if Vietnamese people truly look down on women, would they have devoted so much of their history and literature to portraying women as beautiful, strong, and extraordinary? And the last point of perspective I want to discuss today is in the tradition of nation building and defense. Vietnam has honored female leaders who stood up to protect the country. And some of the strongest evidence are hai bà Trưng and bà Triệu. They are real leaders who commanded armies, organized uprisings, and directly confronted foreign invaders. And Vietnamese people have remembered their women with admiration, respect, and worship. So, Vietnamese women in the past was considered national heroes. They are considered as an independent figure, not as someone's wife, not as someone's companion. Their contributions are recognized on their own, not tied to any man, even to her husband. And that's the reason why, no, that is not the reason why, but history has proved that Vietnamese women are capable of being real leaders, the protectors and creators of history. So, the idea of favoring men over women is not the true spirit of Vietnamese structure. It is just, the reflection of Confucian influence. It's not the true spirit of our Vietnamese culture. So, it is not fair to say that, when we say that Vietnamese culture favors men over women, it is not entirely fair to our ancestor, right? So, that is the reason why I believe that from its very roots, Vietnamese culture has always honored and valued women. So, gender equality is no longer a battle. It is a journey of returning to the best value that belong to us. And this clause is written in the simple present tense. And the simple present tense is used to describe a fact. So I think this is a fact. Thank you for your listening.